Okay, so let's talk about a couple of quick inverse examples just to kind of refresh your memory here. So the first one, this is just a 2 by 2, so I want it to look like this, 1, 0, 0, 1. So I'm going to start with this one. I always start with that top one, so on this example I'll start with this one. So I want that to be a 1, so if I take half of that, I will get 1. So I'm going to take half of row 1. Okay, so that's going to give me a 1, a 1, a 1/2, and a 0. This down here is going to stay the same. So then I'm going to go this way next. So I deal with one column at a time. So I did this one, so now I'm going to look at this one. So if I want that 3 to be a 0, what I could do is take my row 1 times 3, so 3 times row 1, and subtract it from row 2. So if I take 3 times that, subtract the two of them, that will get me what I want. So I'm going to take these times 3 and subtract them. So this times 3 and subtract it. This times 3 would be 3 over 2 and subtract it. This times 3 would be 0, subtract 0. Okay, so that's going to leave me with 3 minus 3 is 0. 1 minus 3 is -2. 0 minus 3/2 is -3/2. 1 minus 0 is 1. Top row is going to stay the same. What you'll notice too sometimes is this started out as being a 1, which is the way it should be, and then I just changed it. So sometimes that happens. It's okay. Just keep going. So now I'm going to have to change this one. So again, I dealt with this column first, and I got this to be a 1 first, and then I made that a 0. So now I'm dealing with this column. I want to get this to be a 1 and this one to be a 0. First, I'm going to do the 1. So to get this to be a 1, I'm going to take it times -1/2. But I have to do that to the whole row. Okay, so my result of that is going to go right here. So this times -1/2 is 0. This times -1/2 is 1. This times -1/2 would become a positive, and then multiply straight across 3 over 4. So 3/4. And then this times -1/2, -1/2. And then my top stays the same. Okay, so last one, so I'm still working on this column right here. I got that to be a 1, now I want this to be a 0. If I just take this minus this, I get 0. So I'm just going to take row 1 minus row 2. 1 minus 0 is 1. 1 minus 1 is 0. 1/2 minus 3/4. So be careful if you need to use a calculator. There is no shame in using a calculator just to be sure. So if you're not sure what that is, 1/2 minus your 3/4 on your calculator would give you a -1/4. If you don't need to use a calculator, that's fine. Just be careful. Don't miss something just because of a calculator error. Okay, so 1/4 on that one. And then 0 minus a -1/2 actually makes that a +1/2. So be careful with your signs also. Okay, and then my bottom row stays the same. So my inverse is -1/4, 1/2, 3/4, -1/2. Okay, the next example, this one's a lot more complicated because it's a 3 by 3. I actually did this one in 2 different ways. One way, I'll show you on this one, I started out by switching my rows around because I looked at this and thought, well, if this one was down here and this middle one was in the middle and this one was on top so that it looked like this, 1, 1, 1, that would be really nice. The problem is that as soon as I started messing with stuff, it started messing up those numbers. So by the time I got to here, those two weren't 1s anymore. So it didn't save me any time at all. It actually took 1 step longer. So I'm going to do it this other way. Just doesn't really matter. I could have went that way. I mean, it doesn't matter. I'll get the same answer. But I'm going to start with this one. I want that to be a 1. So I'm going to take 1/4 of that row. Okay, so that's going to get me a 1, a 0, a 1/4, a 1/4, a 0, a 0. Everything else stays the same, so I'm just going to go ahead and write those in. Okay, this one, if I want this to be a 0, so remember I'm still working with this column. If I want this to be a 0, I can just subtract these two. So row 2, subtract away row 1. Okay, so 1 minus 1 would be 0. Negative 1 minus 0 is negative 1. 2 minus a fourth. That would give me 1 3/4, or I could write that as 7/4. Again, use a calculator if you need to, so you don't mess that up. 0 minus 1/4 is negative 1/4. 1 minus 0 is 1. 0 minus 0 is 0. All of the other stuff, just write it in. Okay, so from here, still working on this column, I'm going to try to get this to be a 0. So I need to take that row and subtract away 3 times this one. So again, I'm going to use this 1 as much as I can to help me out. So multiply it by a 3 and subtract it away. So I'm going to be subtracting 3 there. I'm going to subtract 0 there. Subtract 3/4 there. Subtract 3/4 there, and then 0 for each of those. Okay, so that makes this bottom row 3 minus 3 is 0. 1 minus 0 is 1. 1 minus 3/4 is 1/4. 0 minus 3/4, negative 3/4. 0 minus 0 is 0. 1 minus 0 is 1. Okay, so now I've got this column perfect. This column right here, I could deal with this by just putting these two together right now, or what I'm going to do is work on that middle 1. That's just my habit. That's just what I do. I always get the 1 first and then I get the zeros. So if I want that to be a 1, all I have to do is change the sign. So negative 1 times that whole row. Okay, so that means this middle row is now going to be 0, 1, negative 7/4, positive 1/4, negative 1, 0. Okay, then I can take, if I want, this one's already a 0, so if I want this to be a 0, just subtract those two. So row 3 minus row 2. Okay, so row 3 minus row 2 is going to give me 0, 0, 1/4 minus a 7/4. So if I take 1/4 and I subtract away a negative 7/4, that means I'm actually adding 7/4. So 1/4 plus 7/4 is 8/4, or just 2. And then I've got a negative 3/4 minus another fourth gives me a negative 1. 0 minus a negative 1 is positive 1, and 1 minus 0 is 1. So that one ends up kind of weird. Just be careful with those fractions again. 0, 1, negative 7/4. Okay. Once we get down into these two, it's going to get pretty messy, but let me deal with this one first. So again, I'm done with these two columns now. Working on this column, I want to get the 1 first. So this one's supposed to be a 1, so I'm going to take half of that row. All right, so that gives me a 0, a 0, a 1. This one becomes a negative 1/2, positive 1/2, positive 1/2. Okay, so now this is where it gets kind of messy. So let's start out with this one. If I want this to be a 0, I'm going to take a fourth of this and then subtract it away. So I'm going to take row 1 and I'm going to subtract away a fourth of row 3. So first let's find a fourth of those. This one would give me subtracting 0, subtracting 0, subtracting a fourth. This one, remember when you multiply that by minus a fourth, that becomes plus 1/8. This one would be a minus 1/8 and a minus 1/8. Okay, so 1 minus 0 is 1, 0 minus 0 is 0, 1/4 minus 1/4 is 0. So that gave me what I wanted. 1/4 plus 1/8. So this is the same thing as 2/4, or sorry, 2/8 plus 1/8 is 3/8. 0 minus 1/8 is negative 1/8. And then 0 minus 1/8 again, negative 1/8. All of this stays the same. That wasn't a negative, that should be a positive. Okay, so just be careful with things like that. All right, last one. So now I'm down to this one right here. I need this to be a 0. So I'm going to take that row, so row 2, and I'm going to subtract away, actually I'm going to add 7/4 of that row. So if I take 7/4 times this and then put those together, that would be 0. So that's probably the trickiest one out of all of them. Okay, so I'm going to take my bottom row times 7/4. So this would be adding 0, adding 0, adding 7/4. This one, 7/4 times negative 1/2 would be subtracting, because it would be negative, and then 7/8. This one would be adding 7/8, and this one would be adding 7/8. All right, so 0 plus 0 is 0. 1 plus 0 is 1. Negative 7/4 plus 7/4 is 0. Okay, negative 1/2 minus 7/8. So this is where I need to use common denominators. So this is the same thing as 4/8. So this is like negative 4 minus another 7 gives me negative 11/8. So let me make sure I've got my signs right here. Negative 1/2. And I'm going to be subtracting 7/8 from that. So I think I did this wrong on my key. Let me look at it real quick. So negative 1/2. And then I'm going to subtract away a 7/8. Yeah, I was right. So a negative 11/8 is what I got there. I had it wrong on my key. All right, so negative 11/8 there. Okay, and then let's see this one. A 1/2 plus a 7/8. Not a 1/2, sorry. That's where I messed up. Sorry, guys. My key wasn't wrong. Let's go back here. I was looking at this one instead of this one. So 1/4 minus 7/8. Okay, so that makes more sense. So this is the same thing as 2/8 minus 7/8. That's negative 5/8. So my key was right. I just made a mistake there. All right, and then this one, a negative 1 plus a 7/8. This is the same thing as negative 8/8 plus 7/8 would be a negative 1/8. And then 0 plus 7/8 is 7/8. So watch me, make sure I didn't make a mistake anywhere else in here. All right, and then the top is going to stay the same. And the bottom is going to stay the same. Okay, and then let's just check that. So this one, remember I showed you that other way of doing it was this way where I switched some stuff around first and then did all kinds of things to manipulate it. And when you get to the end, the answer was the same. So there's my 3/8, negative 1/8, negative 1/8, negative 5/8, and so on. So those all match up. So this is my inverse right here. If you have any other questions, let me know.